moving into our next section of our program today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Mieke. Mieke Marple is a friend of mine for many years in Los Angeles, and I've watched as her career has evolved and as my career has evolved and my community, my life, and so much of what I see in her work and in her evolution encapsulates these very same transitions, these really critical questions about the practice of an artist, the practice of somebody working between many different communities, many different types of expectations. So I won't go into too much more because that will kind of give you too much of an introduction, but I'm pleased to welcome Mieke, and I'll let her take it from here. Thank you, Mieke.
All right. Good morning, GM. Thanks for laughing. My name is Mieke Marple, and I'm an artist and writer, and I'm really happy to be here today. All right, cool. I titled my talk NFT Pegasus. So, probably most of you have heard of Medusa and Pegasus from Greek mythology, but I'm guessing that many of you didn't know that Medusa was actually a rape victim. And that, I heard, so someone does know. Great. And Pegasus, the winged horse, symbol of poetry, is actually born from this violent act. So according to Ovid's Metamorphosis from 2 AD, which our modern understanding of Medusa is based on, Medusa was praying at the temple of Athena when Poseidon, the god of the sea, saw her and raped her. And when his wife, Athena, also a god, found out, she turned her into a monster with snakes for hair and eyes that turned people to stone. So this person that we think of as the quintessential female monster is actually a survivor of sexual abuse. Which I feel like speaks volumes that this isn't the part of the Medusa myth that most of us know. Another part that we don't tend to know is that Pegasus was born from Medusa's decapitated head. When Perseus cut it, he emerged from her neck, as one does. Anyway, I love this myth. As violent and heavy and weird as it is, I love it because to me, it's really Medusa undergoing this experience, giving birth to something like Pegasus, is really about a transformation of sort of rage and violence and ugliness into hope and freedom and beauty and art. So I'm going to talk about my own personal mythology a little bit now. Not as epic as Medusa, but, I try. So I used to be an art dealer. I was co-owner of a gallery called Night Gallery, which is still around here in LA, from 2011 to 2016. I partnered when I was 25. And right away, this gallery was pretty successful. We were doing art fairs around the world, Frieze London, Art Basel Hong Kong, Miami, selling to some of the top art collectors, celebrities, etc. So it was really an amazing ride in a lot of ways. But despite the success, and you can see some of the press that we got, I found myself really miserable at age 30, and I left. And that could be a whole nother presentation, probably. But this was a really brutal experience for me because after being sort of in the center of the art world and feeling that everyone wanted to be associated with me, I felt like when I left that no one everyone kind of stopped trying to be in contact with me. It felt like no one wanted to be associated with me, that I didn't have value anymore. And that I took this really personally. I felt like something was monstrous with me. And hence, that's when Medusa entered my life. I was looking for a way to process some of these feelings through art. So I started drawing Medusa. I learned about her story and realized that I had so much in common with her, having also my own history of sexual abuse, than I ever realized. And I started off making paintings, which was great, but also felt limited. I wasn't kind of getting the connection I sought. I wanted to touch more people. I felt really kind of ready to share my rage and experience and all of these things. So I fell into NFTs like a year ago, or a year and a half ago. And I ended up making a generative NFT collection. So I worked with code to make 2,500 Medusa digital paintings, basically, as NFTs. And here's the trailer for that. Yeah, that's some good license-free music. So the most amazing thing happened after I launched this collection. I found myself connecting with other people in what I'm calling the art NFT space, who wanted something more from digital art than the Bored Ape Yacht Club experience. They wanted something deeper. Because certainly my Medusa collection talking about sexual assault wasn't attractive to the people who were buying doodles. And so I, along with Cody Edison, my dear friend who helped me launch the Medusa collection, we started a weekly NFT meetup called NFT Tuesday, which meets every Tuesday at El Cid in Silver Lake, and features a new speaker each week, often an artist talking about their practice and latest project. And anyway, this was incredible for me because it not only exposed me to a lot of new ideas, artists working with AI, artists working with dynamic code, co-creating work with their collectors, all of this, which coming from my traditional art background, were really new. But it really put me in touch with the community, and that word gets overused, I think, in the NFT space, but it really did, of artists whose ambitions were more than just individualistic. They were really collective, and they had ambitions for the field of digital art and NFTs. And this, well, I do also want to say, it wasn't just artists. I also connected with art dealers and curators and leaders in this space. And I was so amazed by how even businesses that were competitors came together often to collaborate and do things. And again, I feel like it really spoke to this more collective ambition to see the field do well overall. And this was so different from my experience in the traditional art world, where it felt like ambitions were very, focused on the individual. Like, there wasn't a lot of interest in changing the status quo, merely in doing well within it. And so it was very easy to feel alone in that world. But in the NFT world, I really felt like I was part of something bigger. And that really made me a braver person. I found myself taking risks, doing things that I'd wanted to do for years, but put off and made excuses. One of which is this article that I published just a month ago in the Huffington Post that talks about sort of the problematic sexual dynamics that I and many other women experienced in the traditional art world. I've been writing and reflecting on these experiences for years. I've actually at work on a memoir that I've been working on for a long time. But I hadn't actually gone public with it. I hadn't talked openly about it. But this kind of feeling of not being alone, I can hear myself getting emotional. Yeah, it really changed my life. I also made a film, which is another thing I wanted to do for a long time. Like I said, I'm a writer and an artist, but I'd never before had brought those two things together. I'd always made excuses why not to do it. And anyway, this is a film a very short film that I made for an event called Non-Fungible Castle in Prague that's based on Czech folklore, which is also so much folklore and mythology, has a lot of sort of abuse of women in it. And I'm very interested in sort of revising that and updating it. And anyway, this is the film. It's also pretty heavy and features decapitation, which I can't seem to get away from. But thank you. But I really, coming back to the Medusa and Pegasus story and this transformation of sort of rage into hope, the result of all of this has been that I've felt my anger dissipate and turn into something much more positive. I used to be so angry at the traditional art world, and I genuinely don't feel that way anymore. I feel like I want to show them kind of how it could be, what they're missing out on, what it could feel like if our ambitions were more collective and geared towards improving the field as a whole and not just our own individual status within it. So, oh, thank you. So I'm becoming a Pegasus is the end note. And I feel like I'm not all the way done with this transformation, but I can certainly already see the changes and I can see where it's going. And I'm so happy to be here and I'm so grateful for everything. So thank you.
Few words of introduction about Refik, also somebody who spans boundaries, modes of practice, communities, somebody who's leading at a technology level, at an art level, at a collections and museum level, traveling internationally, working across a huge range of communities and partners, and somebody for whom is a huge inspiration for me. So with that, I will leave it to Refik, and then we will gather for a few questions after this between Mieke and Refik. And here's the mic and ready to go.
Thank you very much. An amazing and a powerful presentation. Thank you very much for the inspiration and the power. So I'm a media artist and great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I would like to share, I guess, to be I found the most honest and a direct communication in this mod is like, I guess, the journey itself. So I will quickly prepare this keynote for 20 minutes, hopefully, and go through the journey as a collective, as a person, as for maybe humanity, that's what we can do with the recent technologies. I'm a media artist practicing in the field, origin from Istanbul, Turkey, where like literally left and right and pretty much contemporary and modern and historic, pretty much every extreme contrast feelings have been around. And pretty much start nerding, I guess, 8 years old with the computers, maybe very cliche start, but start programming and playing games, and very beautiful. Same year, 8 years old, watch this movie Blade Runner that transformed, I guess, the positive imagination about the near future. I think being a probably child has an advantage of not seeing the dystopian world, but most about like utopian. And the whole journey became much profound when I started studying at undergrad in Istanbul. And I was very fortunate to meet with Lev Manovic, and he was giving an amazing lecture at this event where I was super inspired by the idea of really how he was depicting the future of like when an architect and an artist came together, perhaps there's a new kind of finding ways of creating materials around the media facades. So the very early studies with the data started 2008 as well. This is the very first program called Pure Data that allows creators to create pieces by using sensors real time. And I guess the obsession with invisible data around us became around that time. And early projects were about projection on the existing cultural beacons, transforming them into a canvas and around the world. And this became a kind of a practice, I guess, 14 years ago, and learning a software called the VVVV, which is a kind of an open source software you can download, mostly PC based, but really allows you to create anything you may wish. And early 2011 started also working with the public data, specifically understanding the power of public space. I think 11 years ago, I was very much shocked at how it's powerful when we go beyond gallery and museums, and how the public space becomes a canvas, and how actually connected with the people in the streets without any beginning and end, in like, the ceiling or the floor or a door, that opens up a whole new universe. And that's, I think, the idea of poetics of data and practicing with the information around us, but not seeing as a number, but a form of a memory, which can take, I hope, any shape and form. And early years was really inspired also the idea of truly understanding what is real and physical, and as William Gibson predicts, and pretty much I think very real what's happening right now to us, and how we can really render out these realities. This frame idea you may see in my work a lot. It's actually a rejection. 11 years ago, it was too expensive to put around the building, and that rejection became a body of work as well. The early practice was really understanding like who we are as humanity and how we are becoming these entities, and how our physical and virtual reality is completely transforming. I think we are a very lucky generation, seeing how the internet born and how we are, becoming these new engines, machines between humans and environments. And as Kierkegaard maybe predicts that truly the life is understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And it's exactly how we produce data and how we consume this information around us. And this specifically changing who we are, our DNA and gene, and eventually becoming these new control mechanisms that the machines we use becoming our sometimes masters of our time. And I think the sense of displacement, which is specifically happening last decade, becoming a very powerful reason, I hope, that art becomes more powerful. And I thought that this really requires some kind of a deep questions, which takes a lot of courage, responsibility, and not an egocentric journey, but perhaps something that should be done together. I joined at UCLA Design Media Arts 10 years ago, so the second MFA studies, and thanks to Casey Rias and many wonderful pioneers, allow me to teach. They allow me to learn how to code and how to really work with data in a different depth. And very luckily, around those days, I was dreaming about what will happen if one day AI becomes an architectural material going beyond concrete, glass, and steel. And luckily, on a stage with my short next to Bill Gates and many others, I got my first, encouragement financially as a student without any visa to work with. But I was able to bring back some awards to our department. And the critics at the department about using light as a material and data and so on. I was in the Bill Gates collection. So sometimes critics are not too honestly important, and sometimes they are useless. I'm sorry to say that. So the idea was really opening a studio and get this support and become an entity, not an alone journey. And this was our Silver Lake studio, opened 8 years ago. And now we are 15 people, can speak 15 languages, represent 10 countries with a 27 age, pretty much nerds enjoying, imagination with computation and for humanity. Last 5-8 years was a truly understanding how we can embed media arts into architecture, specifically focusing on public art, as you may see. We work with pretty much from the Wi-Fi signals, Bluetooth, brain data, heartbeats, large archives and information around us, and try to create meaningful, purposeful experience is mostly free and open to everyone in the world. And that was a really interesting connection point with the audience. And what we learned is like these last 8 years is truly this creates a new audience around the digital art, but also having an open and direct and sometimes demystifying the process truly allows to create a new connection. And in the previous centuries, when the art created, not necessarily artists were sharing how it's made, like what was like the process, but the more we demystify the process, the more we share openly, we find a new kind of a safe and secure space for our audience, and I think it created a new kind of a bonding and across the continents. Right now we have 16 permanent pieces, open and free to everyone in 7 continents. It's a really like I think became this a powerful mission for our studio to like make art for anyone, any culture, anyone in the world. So around that time, I think 2016 was an important day. You may remember this weird image called Deep Dream, and 3 Google engineers by accident tried to create a backpropagation algorithm that allowed them to let this machine or let this algorithm dream or hallucinate. I think it was a very inspiring moment for many creators in the space. And I was so fortunate, 2016 in February, in San Francisco at Gray Area, there was this event called Deep Dream. That the team behind this algorithm was creating an literally very first time auction to support the local artists. And I was the only one in the audience that has no idea about AI, but the rest was Google engineers, genius, beautiful minds. And they allowed me to become the first artist in resident at AMI. I took this chance in a way that not just create another like a tech demo, but try to find a meaningful depth and bring the depth to surface with AI. So we focus on this incredible story from the Borges Library of Babel. And hopefully one day, every single data in the world can be accessible to anyone in the world. We created this piece called Archive Dreaming. It was the first time we were exploring how to create an immersive environment in a library where humans get the information, eventually knowledge, one day wisdom. That became our first practice with data and try to understand what happens in a library where we learn the truth or the life. What happens if AI can dream and hallucinate? And that was a very early practice with VR technologies like sense of displacement and real-time understanding multi-million images. Maybe you remember those early days of AI that it's really incredibly fascinating to see that a machine can learn. Like the left side is 9 years of research of archivist. The right side is only 90 seconds long AI computing the same data. It's pretty predictable that machines do not forget, and how can we use them beyond just negative speculation? And what happens if we turn these machine decisions into some form of art? In this case, we were practicing with technique called lower dimension reduction. For example, Rumi, Persian poet, and his Mesnevi in 19 languages. But AI can read the same poem and give us some different ways of understanding the emotions and the context. Or in the Mozart case, we can listen entire his body of work, but look at a new perspective. And what was also very inspiring is like if a machine can learn, can a dream question became an inspiring research, but also like almost 7 years ago, now it's probably stable diffusion on Midjourney and all that stuff. It's like very quick, but 6 years ago, training a neural net with 1 million images and let it dream. And then on top of it, like not you accept as its output, but try to find new ways of data pigmentation became a research. Last 6 years, we truly tried to understand how can we work with these neural networks and specifically, like this one. And how can we like really transform these data sets into, how can we transform this data set into like form of artwork that can transform maybe into a new aesthetic foundation? So last 6 years, we download more than 3 billion images, which is public, all our data that I think is also an interesting topic. And look at like information for collective memories, such as like space, nature, culture, urban, things that are not personal information, but are collectively explored feelings, experiences, and context. As you may see, even though the algorithm has a kind of a common ground of like fluid dynamics, each city, each information, each memory, each archive was creating a different behavior and different reflex. This was a really fun study of, I think, using creativity with machine learning algorithms. But as Carl Sagan also mentions, what else could we do that beyond just two-dimensional imagination? So over the years, we learned that actually same studies can become these three-dimensional environments in public space, or we could like do this real-time analysis of the, for some reason. Okay, so we were able to like create these real-time algorithms live with the like performing arts in different formats. Like even in here, we can see if it plays on the left side. It's interesting. Okay, so on the left side, in real-time AI and train on like 16,000 species. On the right side, a live piece can be also a part of a performing arts experiences. And another experiment was really fun in New York. This time we tried to experiment what happens if these similar ideas become a space, light becomes maybe a new material. And for New York, we were able to download 113 million images of New York and try to reconstruct a machine dreams in a mostly three-dimensional environment. I guess Team Lab and many other like artists exploring specific ideas. But to me, what was more inspiring is like what happens if you like create this a dream space where we know where the data comes from, how AI trained, and demystify the potentials of AI and create a kind of a sense of new environment where the music and the sound, which is also trained on AI neural networks, specifically from the TVs, radio stations, that the fabric of the city was becoming these three-dimensional spaces. And that became a kind of a interesting studies that different buildings actually can become input. For example, a 120 years old theater in Istanbul, without like damaging any surface, respectful to the culture and the history, we were able to use entire 150 movies have been played in this movie and even try to reconstruct the memories of the building back to itself. And over the years, we also learned that collaborations with technology is an incredibly powerful moment of innovation. I think getting out of the comfort zone with AI is a very inspiring process than just using great tools. We always challenge ourselves, especially in the pandemic, what else can we do with these technologies? For example, here, we were able to download 16,000 species from the Smithsonian Archive. There's an incredible open source data set, which we collect with 75 million more images. We're able to create an AI that pretty much can dream, I guess, all the flower types in the world. And later on, the other question was, like, can we feel the scent and the smell of this AI? So thanks to another AI called Charlie, trained on 500,000 molecules, which I think can create any scent in the world, we were able to also create this immersive room where two AIs are communicating and creating this sense of environment where you can see the animation, where you can see the animation of the AI creating these environments with the music trained on 4 terabytes of forest sounds and images, and then create this sense of machine dreams in a multi-sensory world, which I do believe metaverse is more inspiring than putting a TV on our face or another marketplace. I hope these are the ideas we will be seeing and feeling in the near future. And then public art and NFTs are a very powerful topic that I would love to share. And before finishing my presentation, of course, there's an incredible movement with incredible new ways of sharing culture and value and many things. But as an artist practicing in public space, I didn't want to do another a piece of experience that is only available for a certain group of people or only available online. We took this challenge and tried to create something a little bit different, I hope, that create a new kind of a discourse and questions. We have been working with tons of data sets from very meaningful machines such as Hubble telescope, ISS, and MRO. But as an artist, I don't know how to draw very well. I mean, I know how to compute a point and line mathematically, but I cannot draw an artist that is practicing beautifully. These are for example, ideas I couldn't make them available in a physical world. They only exist in the virtual space. So I thought that perhaps it's a great time to explore these unfinished sculptures in the physical world and put them in the blockchain. But while we are doing that, for example, a project we did in Sotheby's in Hong Kong, instead of practicing in a virtual space, what happens if the room itself becomes NFTs? And what happens if this room becomes first a public art, free, open for everyone, and then minted as a 101 editions? I guess this kind of speculations of reconstructing how we give value to objects and art experiences, really exciting part of, I hope, the NFTs brought, and these kind of questions became exciting. And besides that, what was also funny and exciting also, this piece that we are seeing was a pandemic project, alive in NGV, National Gallery of Victoria in Melbourne. As we know, Australia was completely closed. And this piece, before becoming NFT, was, and 1.7 million people came and experienced this for free. And I think this is really interesting to see that NFTs can be also a form of a public art and can be explored free and open, and then has a value later. I found this cycle more meaningful and purposeful than dictating a certain value and creating a sort of scarcity without giving a value in life. Also, another project we finished this year, which is a very meaningful project, I hope that by using SpaceX datasets and inspiration for mission for astronauts living in the space for 3 days, we donate $2.5 million to St. Jude Children's Hospital. So also this is an incredible model. I hope that some NFT collections and some strong communities can create a very valuable give back to the system that is somehow lacking the support. And then maybe the last part is this memory part, which I hope that we all believe that eventually the machines around us are trying to get this information from us. It's obviously, but how can we encrypt our memories? Maybe blockchain can be helpful. And how can we get the free will and the privacy still on our hands? Over the years, we worked with many institutions. This is a piece from 5 years ago. Unfortunately, my uncle was Alzheimer's, and I learned about this disease. And also next week, we are dropping a piece at Instagram's NFT project, completely donating entire to Alzheimer Foundation. I also found that there are so much ways of doing this. This project is called Sense of Healing. We also donate 1.7 million euro to UNICEF for children's mental health. So I think there are many ways of using NFTs when it's explored publicly, and these incomes, economical need, creative economy can be very helpful for upcoming generations. Another piece was in Art Basel Miami last year. Similarly, we were able to create the piece and donate a significant number to the coral research and repair of the underwater problems that the climate change is critically making all the corals dying one by one. And another good news, I guess, to share about the space that I hope will make a big impact is last year, thanks to Casey Rias, Paolo Antonelli, and Michelle Ko from MoMA, we were able to also speculate what will happen with AI curated by the Museum of Modern Arts and their 320,000 artworks, which is incredible artists across the history. And we were able to create this AI module that was dreaming instantly and constantly. And next week, on 19th of November, we are opening the show at MoMA in the Gun Lobby, again, free and open as a public art, will be a piece that is real-time dreaming. And thanks to NVIDIA friends that allow us to innovate, we will be using a real-time vision, sound, and climate data. And this AI will be instantly dreaming for 5 months in the lobby, and hoping to have it in a permanent collection at MoMA that I hope that will create a new impact and value for digital art in general. And these are some pieces that have been in the collection, and the 3 of them will be real-time, will be explored for 5 months in the Gun Lobby. And another maybe exploration of NFTs, what will happen? The question is this dynamic NFTs, which is a beautiful topic. In this case, in König Gallery in Berlin, we were able to create this dynamic NFT by using a real-time computer graphics, getting a real-time weather data from the city of Berlin, and then a trained neural network from the local Berlin nature data, and let this cultural beacon tower dream as an NFT, which I think an interesting topic of using dynamic NFT context. And I think the piece also another piece was in Palazzo Strozzi, another NFT exhibition, which is next to Donatello, which was a very inspiring moment because a home of Renaissance where the pioneers of the art have been explored, and an AI dreaming all their work was a beautiful dialogue between the past and the future. And lastly, I guess another public art experience was Gaudi's Casa Batlló building in Barcelona. Gaudi is a very powerful and a very inspiring architect that I hope that inspired many creators in the world. And this was a deeply honored project, a UNESCO heritage, a facade that I hope that was very well known in the cultural space. The Casa Batlló family and the Gaudi Foundation was looking for something inspiring and meaningful for them. And we took the challenge and take this UNESCO heritage facade, which is a 1 billion points, literally, that is 3D scanned perfectly for preserving reasons. And also put a real-time weather station in the building, in the in the top floor, and was able to create this dynamic NFT. The building is an incredibly features, and when we had this 1 billion data points and a real-time sensor, we were able to collect the data in real time, as you may see on the very left side, the wind patterns, the speed of wind patterns changes, and if it rains, there is this rain representations of like fluid dynamics and so on. So this was like the main concept of like creating this in a game engine and fully connected to like the blockchain also as well. So what was very, I guess, powerful, not only creating an NFT, but literally creating this moment of celebration. So we were able to use the entire building as a canvas and brought back around 50,000 people together before minting the work to the blockchain. It was this ceremonial moment, like the city came and hugged the building and celebrated before it became a body of work. And I think it is clearly visible here that NFTs can create a major public impact, and questions and discourse and depth can be driven. And I'm really grateful for the journey last 8 years as a studio, that it doesn't matter where the art is, like if there is a meaning and depth and purpose, I do believe that digital art has an impact, it's quantifiable, but still, I do believe that it's still important for us to understand what we do, how we do, and how we share. And this is a beautiful quote that in Burning Man, that someone take our work, the richest man is in the one with the most love. So thank you very much for listening.
Take a seat on the stage. Thank you, Refik. And Mieke, if you would like to join us, we'll have time for a few quick questions here. Very much would like to prioritize any questions from the audience. So if you do have some, there's a microphone there, and we can jump right into that. And I have a few questions myself as well. But first and foremost, thank you both. Remarkable work, absolutely inspiring, and represents the spirit of this week as best as possible. So I guess we'll start with a question from the audience that I see emerging right here. Welcome.
Thank you for having this space. Welcome and happy sunrise to all of you. Incredible presentations. My question is first to Refik. I'm in the Discord, clicking some great stuff. And I definitely my mind gets expanded each time I witness your presentation. So the questions are based on one, hardware. Are you going to develop a panel or a display so I can get in my house as 6 foot? Are you working on that? Second, will you make this a novelty? So can I log in with TikTok or Twitter or Instagram and get a poetic digital piece of all my posts, based on a decade or the months or the years? That's a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So great to be connected to the Discord. And then, by the way, amazing community, we have 16,000 people imagining and thinking. So yes, I hope that this display technology becoming more available. At the moment, over the years, we work with the Samsung, LG, and this kind of the pioneers of the medium. Still cooking a lot, but I think, as we all know, the NFT space is not right away. We're looking for high quality files, storing. So it's still on the hands of, I think, creators to be sure that the files are extremely high quality, can place perfectly. So there's a gap between the storing technology and displaying technology. So as a studio, we always try to give our collectors our own computers, nerding with our own softwares that plays perfectly and so on. And the second part is, yes, so we are opening our first, metaverse museum in downtown Los Angeles called Dataland. We'll be opening in a Frank Gehry building hopefully next year. And that's our a next push for the space to make a physical world where, the idea you have, our data around us becomes our own substance for creativity. So that's the push. Will take 1 year, but I promise we'll be in Los Angeles.
And is that the first public announcement?
I think so. Properly.
So you heard it here first.
We are pushing so hard.
Mieke, I think you also could address that question with your work with Vellum and thinking about installations around NFT and the community that you're in.
Yeah. Well, I want to say I'm so honored to be here with Refik. I saw Machine Hallucinations in New York, and I got one of the NFTs. But when I saw that, actually, I was just this is the most interesting art being made right now. This is the art that speaks to what it feels like to be a person in the world at this moment. And then we were also in the Carbon Drop together, which we probably don't have time to go into, but it's a very interesting story on my part. because
That WhatsApp group was
well, I'll just tell it really quick. I don't have a digital background, but I got into the NFT space in February of last year. Just my first NFTs were just pictures of my paintings, like the least technical thing you could think of. And they sold right away. And then to a great collector who 2 weeks later put me in a benefit auction with Refik and people. I mean, these people that are just legends. And I had been in the space 2 weeks, and my piece was just a picture of a painting. And it was anyway. Yeah, that was amazing. But it really got me hooked. Yeah, you guys are legends.
By the way, thank you very much. And that's a very interesting topic because there's an artist who have been criticizing the drop because of this previous Ethereum wasn't proof of work. Sorry, we were like still like greenwashing and all that. And this WhatsApp was very interesting. Like we were trying to do something very good, I think, and try to be sure that it's like creating an impact. And that was a very weird WhatsApp group. You're super right that. And now, I mean, 6 months later, proof of stake and all that gone, but it was interesting.
Yeah, I'll actually do want to stay on. I know I'm maybe not addressing the question, but I think this is interesting, so I'm going to stay with it. But yeah, basically, the time of that auction, it was a benefit auction for a nonprofit that's trying to do carbon accountability to battle climate change. But it was the height of the sort of Ethereum backlash, and people were like, Ethereum is ruining the world and takes as much energy as a small country. And yeah. And then obviously, and it's not that wasn't true. It's just that there was early days and, like people improved. There's always learning curves for anything, any new technology. And it always gets more efficient as it goes. And I think this also actually relates to something I really admire about you is I feel like how much you say yes and how much. No, but this really is, I think it's this spirit of not being afraid to fail and maybe not being afraid of getting it quite wrong somewhat. And maybe it's kind of also like what Alejandro was saying about showing up even if you're not ready. Like you don't have all the answers. Things are not perfect, but you show up anyway. And you say yes, and you're on time. So
I think it's a perfectly important for anyone practicing because I mean the field, whatever it is, like digital or physical or sculpture or painting or movie or like any creative field, I think have a similar bungee jumping moment. Like this, sometimes the failing is the most beautiful experience ever. Like and the most growth mostly happens in that specific time. And it happened a lot to many people in the NFT space or before and after. So I think I totally agree with that little bit. Being in that uncomfortable zone of like failure is an incredibly valuable for anyone want to practice. Doesn't matter whatever the value is, but the experience itself is, I think, incredibly valuable.
Well, and perhaps not to derive your feeling of failure from the person who's telling you failed, but from the attempt that you're making to try.
Yes, because I mean, at the end, we put our own dreams in our own mind, right? I mean, most likely to me, at least, success is like making dream to real. I mean, if we dream big, the real will be much less and less chance. And that is the distance we create and algorithmically imagine. So the more you put the dream higher or the impossible, the more your real will become a high chance of failure. And that's what I was trying to say with bungee jumping. I mean, like projection onto Disney Hall, like in a student, people are saying like impossible. Like who cares you? Like you are like a student with no visa. Frank Gehry will never reply you. LA Phil doesn't care about you. Like these are like very obvious good statements. But the more we found those realistic answers, the more walls we have, the more we need to break them. And the more you hear them, that means the idea is most likely doing something different than the others. But that's very and honestly what it is all about, I think, that creative innovation and discoveries.
Any additional questions, maybe from online, Max?
Yeah, we actually have a question from yesterday's moderator, Safir. For Refik, amazing work. He was saying he was at, and sorry if I pronounced this wrong, Casabatlo and he was mesmerized by the work you did there. He wants to ask how much of the creative outcome of your animations is in your control versus left to the AI.
I think it's a co-creation. Like I think you've mentioned the same feeling. I think accepting AI as an extension of mind is a very powerful meditation. Like you just let it go a little bit, like about these obsessions and OCD about like, parameters and algorithms, the data and whatever. And you really like find this, uncanny valley where the machine do things that you were not expecting. Like these are the moments that I found the most inspiring moments. But in generally, we have very much hand control, like practicing very carefully. Even though machines do not decide yet, we know that it's coming like in a decade or so. So I think it's like a warming up the mind and the humanity. Like how can we be sure that demystifying these tools, by the way, thanks to the image prompting, right? That is allowing us to at least understand, things humbly. But like what happens if we are one day witness with a machine that creates its own culture and its own art? Like, are we ready for accepting as a being or not? Like these are the points of interest while controlling the parameters.
Great. And then an anonymous asker is asking, where do the two of you see the integration of these technologies, AI, NFT, into the physical fine art world in the next 10 years? So kind of a general question.
Yeah, I can answer that. I also sort of actually have thoughts on the prior question too, because I worked with an algorithm on the Medusa collection, and then I actually worked with someone else, a visual effects person on the film. And working with an algorithm was so amazing. It was basically a practice in letting go of some control and realizing that in doing that, you actually sort of better access yourself or who you are. That you can go deeper than you could go if you were consciously controlling everything. And I think that goes for working with AI or computers, but it also goes for working with people. If you kind of don't micromanage them and you trust them and you kind of give them some freedom, you can get somewhere deeper that's better and more true to who you are than you could otherwise. And you want to answer you take the question?
Totally agree. And also I think, we are seeing major museums are now accepting not accepting, but participating this dialogue and finding ways of exhibiting works, like in Palazzo Strozzi, which is a very traditional museum in Florence, decided to make an NFT show. To me, it was really, really exciting, seeing Donatello, Michelangelo, it was a very beautiful dialogue. I think this type of, or the MoMA show that is coming, I hope that will bring these dialogues together for 5-6 months. We will be inviting artists from different disciplines, working with AI or data. It doesn't matter, anyone who is practicing with digital art, I think is the movement's part. So my hope is becoming a more prominent, and I think thanks to NFTs, it's a kind of a form of activism that was needed to be able to tell that this group of people have been practicing with these technologies and should be a form of art, and without any elitism, this can be also a part of everyone's life. I think that happened these last 2 years, I think.
Hello. Beautiful presentation, both of you. Thank you so much. I had a question around what is your process for deciding to move forward with a project? Is it the data that excites you, or is it the community? Is it your team, or is it the client itself?
I can go first. I come from a deeply personal, emotional place often. Like I said, I've been working on a memoir, and all of the projects I've worked on are sort of reflections of where I'm at usually. So I feel like if I come across something that really resonates with where I am at in my life, but also speaks to something bigger, that's when I get really excited and want to work with it, whether it's a mythology or, etc.
I think data is totally an inspiring start point, but also there are things that I found that needs more wisdom. So I was in rainforest and live with 1 week with the Yavanava people, an incredible indigenous people, in the Accra, in the like one of the most beautiful humans that I never know. And they are 1,200 people, and they have been practicing with plant medicines for 5,000 years, and they have no COVID, they don't have a cancer, they live for 120 years. They respectfully grow as a family. Like I somehow, this question about what does it mean to be a human, I think requires research about going back to fundamentals of humanity. So for example, when I was with them, like talking about, hey, do you have data? Do you have archive and museum? Like I was so ignorant and so amateur about asking these questions. And living with them 1 week, at the end, like they gave me a massive lesson saying that this is the museum. Like there is no paper and pen. That's how we share our memories and dreams. And they gave me this beautiful memory, unfortunately, a jaguar teeth, which was their memory. Unfortunately, their peace with nature only breaks when a jaguar fights with their children. And like these kind of memories, there is no information about points and lines or algorithms and so on, that I found more powerfully changing the world than only stuck with the current systems we have. So I personally try to grow to find new ways of understanding humanity through going back to fundamentals.
That's beautiful.
And perhaps one more question, and then we will actually to a quick break and bridge into our next two sessions.
Hello, my name is Barna Onat. I'm a recent graduate from Media Design Practices. Thank you so much for your inspirational presentations. My question is for Mieke. Thank you so much for being open and vulnerable with us and everything you're doing. I think it's empowering. I wanted to ask if you could speak to more about how the NFT world has been able to create a safer environment for you so you no longer feel alone as you did before.
Yeah. How it has, well, I think like one of the beauties so the NFT is a big world, right? And there's always worlds within worlds. But the pocket that I found, which are really artists, so many of these artists that I've come into community with have been making digital art for years, some of them decades. And it's been sort of on the fringe of what people have been paying attention to. And so they really, I almost stepped into camaraderie that was already there because so much, it was a passion. They're making work for each other. They weren't no one really had ambitions of living off their work. And that was just coming from the traditional art world where I was so used to commoditizing work. And I didn't honestly see what the point of an artwork was if it couldn't be sold and you couldn't make money off of it. That was revelatory for me. And yeah, I just realized that the power of art, really, to create connections between people, to facilitate expression, and I guess put us more in touch with what it means to be human. And if you're more in touch with your humanity, and you're around other people that are in touch with theirs and exploring it, you will just feel safer, and you will feel more comfortable in your skin, and you will feel braver.
Well, thank you both. I think that will conclude this session. Your generosity, your expansive thinking, the connections between your work and how this informs our community is going to take us forward. It's humbling to know what you both are doing and that you're sharing that with us. We're appreciative. So with that,
thank you.
We'll move into the next session. If you do need a bathroom break, please take it, but don't go away.